Hey everybody, welcome to the Meeple Mentor YouTube channel and or the podcast, which is called Mentor Minutes, and I'm Jared.
I'm Jay.
Yeah, today we are going to be talking about a number of things, but mainly our top 10 choices or picks for best gateway games to introduce to new gamers or people who aren't familiar with modern gaming.
Yeah, and that term gateway, right, is definitely something used in the hobby. But what it really represents are entry-level games that you can introduce to friends who may have only played traditional games like Monopoly, Scrabble, and other games like that. Sorry, Trouble, stuff like that.
A lot of chance games.
Yes.
So a lot of more modern games are very strategic in nature, and they offer a lot of different new game mechanisms that really haven't been seen in some of those older games. So do you have any way that you kind of put this list together, or how did you decide on your top 10? There's a lot of great gateway games out there.
Yeah, this is one of those where you could have 50 games easy on this list. And what I did is, based on my experience introducing these games to non-gamers, these were the 10 that I found are typically the most successful.
Like well received.
And they also have some of the sort of smallest rules overhead. So they're easy. You can play it with any group. That's what I looked at is would any of these games, would I introduce it to anyone? And for me, I would.
Cool. Yep. I like that. So for you, it narrowed down by wide appeal and simple or not a lot of rules.
Yeah, and also I tried to also go across some different like mechanisms and styles, so there'd be some diversity, so they're not all card games and that kind of thing. How about you?
Well, I ended up making a list of like 25, and then I had to narrow it down to top 10 again.
Yeah, so about 20, I think.
Who knows? Maybe we'll do a follow-up to this and talk about more gateway games or level 2 gateway games, stuff that you might show later. Because what I did was, out of this list, I said, okay, well, I want to pick stuff that maybe a lot of people aren't as familiar with, but are still really great, and sort of use this as a jumping point to look into some new games that you might want to show your non-gaming friends. So hopefully there's not a lot of crossover between us on this list, and hopefully there's not too many that are expected. But with that said, I also wanted to, certainly the rules complexity was a big one. I wanted to make sure I chose games that didn't overcomplicate things or introduce too much too fast.
Yep.
But the second thing that I wanted to do out of all 10 picks was have each game introduce a new game mechanism known in the modern game.
Okay.
In modern gaming.
Yeah.
So each one is different in the sense that if they played all 10 of these, they'll have a pretty good sense of where the modern gaming is. And if any one of them really stands out as someone's favorite, you can then point to another game in that mechanism.
Yeah.
To the next level of gaming.
Yeah. So. No, that sounds good. Yeah. And I think also some of the decision too was, there's some great gateway games for a specific group of people who are new to the hobby. But I was going for wide appeal as well. So.
Yeah. So that's how I frame this. I think we're ready to go.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's look at our number 10. Number 10. So my number 10 pick is a roll and write game. I figured which roll and write would be a really good one to introduce to people. You might be thinking it's the Railroad Inc., but it's not. It's a game called On Tour, partly because I'm just a big fan of the rock and roll theme of touring across the United States. If you haven't played it, you roll 2 dice, and then you take the numbers of each, and like if you rolled a 2 and a 5, then you'd have to write a 25 and a 52 somewhere on the city's little bubbles on your individual player board. And it's obviously a dry erase. And at the very end of the game, once all the cities have numbers in them, you want to basically create the longest path going sequentially upwards, from lowest to highest. And I believe you're allowed to repeat the same number. So if you go from 10 to 10, that's fine. But It's very simple to play, very simple to teach, and I feel like the theme of this one grabs people a little bit more than Railroad Ink. Plus, there's less drawing required, whereas Railroad Ink, if you've played it, has all these different squares, and you have to be able to draw the difference between a railroad and a regular road and other things if you add the other stuff. So I felt on tour, it doesn't last too long of a game, but it's always a lot of fun. It's very colorful, and it introduces that roll and write concept pretty well for new players.
Yeah, I agree. And they really use that sort of classic thing where you're just using numbers, and you have a map of the U.S., so it's familiar. And I think a lot of the roll and write games like Quinto and games like that, Quicks, use that simple numbering system, and those have definitely been hits for me too. So yeah, that's a great pick.
Cool. Thanks.
Okay, so for my number 10, I chose a card game. A lot of the reasons I'll introduce this game to players is because I assume they're probably familiar with, a deck of cards. And so it's a little bit less intimidating if you pull out a stack of cards as opposed to, this big, game board that looks unfamiliar. And the name of that game is Sushi Go.
I was thinking you might say Exploding Kittens.
No. The thing with Exploding Kittens is it has some of that Take That and a few other things. And I think that's probably a good choice for kids, though.
I don't know. The theme is a little bit out there.
Yeah, it is a little out there. That's true.
Cats.
That's true. This is much more friendly sushi theme.
Yeah.
But this game is great because it's very simple. You're just collecting sets of cards. And it doesn't have a lot of like symbology on the cards or anything like that. Symbolism. It's just a simple game that also introduces something that a lot of people haven't seen before, and that's drafting.
Yeah.
So you start out with a hand of cards. You have to keep one of them and then pass the rest of the stack to the player on your left. And it just repeats itself like that. And the cards that you're keeping are the ones that you're using to make sets. And you basically score points based on collecting sets in different ways, 3 of a kind or 2 of a kind, the most of one kind, etc. So this one's been a hit where, once that drafting mechanism's kind of realized and that light goes on to say, oh, well, this hand is probably going to get back to me, and so what do I want to give up and what do I want to actually give the player on my left? And I find that in the 3 rounds of the game that you play, it's usually after that first round that things start to really click. And then by the 3rd round, it's just everybody knows the rules. There's no questions about how to play it.
Of course, it plays so fast, too.
And it plays really quickly.
Playing one round is not that, it doesn't take that long anyway.
Like 5 minutes or so.
Now, with Sushi Go, do you remember how many players it can play up to?
So Sushi Go, I think, traditionally plays 4 or 5. If you're going to buy this game, and they're very affordable, I would go with Sushi Go Party. And what it is it's a bigger box version of Sushi Go. It's still only about $15, and it accommodates up to 10 players. Oh, wow. And you also have a lot of extra cards that you can mix in, but it still lets you play the standard game, with more players as well. So cool. That's the actual version that I have. So Sushi Go is my number 10.
Good pick. Number 9.
So for my number 9, I went with a traditional word game that has kind of a twist. So lots of people are familiar with, Scrabble or Scattergories or passphrase, those kinds of words. This game uses words in an interesting way, but it also introduces a modern mechanic, and that is a hidden traitor. And the game is called The Chameleon.
Oh.
And this game has been a huge hit with people I've introduced this to. I've
seen it at Target.
It's really good. Yeah, and it's at Target, so it's very, a lot of people that I've taught this to have just instantly gone out and bought it.
So that knocks off that one category right there. Widely appealed.
Widely appealed. You can get it anywhere.
Easily found.
It's easy found. It also plays, a large player count. I think it plays eight players.
That's awesome.
And the way that the game works is everybody has a card in their hand that they're given secretly out. And the cards are identical for every player except for one. The one player just gets essentially a blank card that says you're the chameleon. So they're the secret player in the game.
Like the traitor.
Everybody else has a card that has a grid, similar to what you'd see like on Battleship, like, A through F and then 1 through 3 or 1 through 6 or something at the top.
1 through 3.
Yeah, that would be that'd be an easy game, wouldn't it? This is the children's work, right? It's like my first Chameleon.
My first Battleship. It's like a 4x4 grid.
Yeah, kids play for 5 minutes. You'll be fine. So anyway, the way it works is everybody has this grid, and then you have 2 dice. And the starting player will roll the dice, and basically that will show them, okay, which letter am I looking at, and then which number am I looking at, and then there's a card in the center of the table that has a bunch of words that match a specific category, like animals, that are in that exact same grid. So everybody but one player is going to look, and they're going to say, B5, and B5 on the table is elephant. So everybody knows that elephant is the secret word, except for one player. And so the way the game begins then is everybody has to give a 1-word clue to try to convince everybody else at the table that they know what the word is, elephant, but not giving so much information away that the chameleon can figure out what it is. And you just go around one time, everybody gives 1 word, and then everybody simultaneously points to who they think the chameleon is. And it's just a lot of fun.
Sounds fun.
A great game, and it introduces that sort of hidden role or hidden trailer to the game in a span of about 3 minutes. So
awesome.
per round. So that's my number 9, the chameleon.
Excellent. We'll have to try to play that with some larger groups.
Yeah, it's the more players, the better with this game. Definitely.
So it's interesting that your number 9 pick included a game with a trader.
Yep.
Because that was also a game mechanism that I chose for my number 9 pick.
Okay.
This one just came out last year, also found at Target. It's called The Shining, based off of Stephen Kubrick.
The novels by Stephen King.
Stephen King.
Yes, and it's a Kubrick movie.
But it's a Kubrick movie.
Yeah, that's it.
So the artwork. So I get the names all confused. The artwork in this game are based on the images that you saw in Kubrick's version of the movie, but they're not taken directly. Like they're artistic, impressions and stuff.
Kind of like they do with the Disney games.
Yeah, sort of. But in this game, you have to last out the winter over like 3 or 4 months. And there's also hidden roles. So everybody's a caretaker except for one person who is basically they start the game possessed already from the hotel. And that player is trying to basically subvert, the other player's goals. And basically you've got a pawn on the board and there's various rooms, all, iconic from the movie or from the book. And you move to a room, you do the action that the room does. Usually you're collecting willpower tokens, and those tokens could be images of weapons like a baseball bat or an axe, or it could be a whiskey shot. And all of these willpower tokens add they add up at the end of a round. And as long as your total value of willpower is greater than the 2 shining cards that you were dealt secretly at the beginning of the round, then you're okay. But if the 2 shining cards flip over and that value is more than your willpower, then you become temporarily possessed and you are forced to attack the nearest player on the board where you are. So you would move if you had to attack somebody. So
there's not like one player that's the trader for the entire game.
There is.
Switch. Oh, there is one.
There is.
Okay.
So anybody can temporarily be possessed through this. But there's one person from the beginning who's always possessed, and they won't know their shining cards, but they may plan, to try to get less willpower but not make it obvious, so that
they throw suspicion off themselves,
and so that they still become that player who doesn't attack, but it makes it look like maybe they were still trying to not get possessed.
And this was at Target too, wasn't it?
It is. Okay. It's a game from the OP, I think, from
they've
Prospero
done a lot of
Hall.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about this game, and I'm not like a big fan of the movie or anything, so I didn't know I didn't know what it was even about. But it's kind of great that some of these mass market games are actually like have good mechanisms in them.
Yeah, I think so. It's a very light, maybe medium weight, but pretty light game. It doesn't take too long to play, maybe 30 minutes, and you can play up to 5 people. But there is a version where you can play without the trader, but I recommend doing it anyway.
Wouldn't be as fun.
I just don't think it would be as fun without thinking that there's someone out there that's already possessed and trying to, win.
Yeah, sounds interesting.
It's a lot of fun, and it's not like the best game in the world, but it is like for a gateway game to introduce the trader mechanic, and it's otherwise cooperative. I feel like this ticks a lot of boxes for a game that you would introduce to some new gamers.
Yeah, and the fact that it's
too is
readily available. You can just send somebody to Target to go pick it up.
Yeah, so that's my number 9.
All right, cool.
Number 8. Okay, so my number 8 takes on another game mechanism, and this happens to be one of my favorite game mechanisms, worker placement. This is a small box game, and the first of this developer's small boxes, and you'll see what it is. It's called Mintworks.
Okay, yeah.
And it's the first that started like
small.
3 or 4 of their games after this that all still occupy the size of a Mint 10 can. And this first one I think is excellent because, again, it doesn't take long to play. The rules are very easy to explain, and you quickly learn what worker placement is. There's various cards out on the board that have action spots, and players can place workers there, and sometimes you place more than one to try to do a better action. And then there's ways to collect more workers, but there's basically one worker pool of all the same white peppermint looking mints. And so you kind of go back and forth of spending a lot and gaining some more, and essentially you're trying to collect like these goal cards and be able to complete those. And once any player has completed the required amount, they win the game, and the game stops. And it's awesome. And the fact that you can just keep it in your pocket and then pull it out and play it anywhere, that's an extra plus, because if you weren't even getting together for games, you could still bring this in your pocket, and let's say you're just sitting at the table and you're like, hey, let me just show you this. And it's like, it looks like mints, right?
Or like a restaurant or something.
Yeah, a restaurant. It's like, this is just a little mint game. It's pretty cool. It's very non-threatening. And it gets people into it because it looks so unique and so interesting.
Yeah.
So that's
and that these have become really popular. There's like 4 or 5 of them now, I think.
Mint Delivery, Mint Cooperative, I think another one.
Kickstarter.
Yeah, they keep going, and so they're very popular.
Yeah. Good pick. Yes. I like that one. I didn't even think of that one, but I think you're exactly right with that one. So for my number 8, I picked a very traditional sort of party style game, but also has a bit of a twist to it as well. So a lot of the classic games of like charades, or where you're trying to give somebody a clue to guess a word. A lot of people are familiar with that kind of a game, like Taboo, exactly. So this kind of takes that and just sort of ups it a little bit and almost turns it into a team game. And the name of this game is called When I Dream. And the way this game works is it also plays a large player count, like up to 10 people. Somebody is going to be blindfolded or have their eyes closed, and then everybody else is going to get a secret roll.
I'm there already.
They're already, yeah. This is not like anything with piñatas or anything like that.
It comes with a baseball bat.
It does not come with a baseball bat. But so everybody's going to get a card that has a roll, and you're either going to be one of 3 different characters. So you're either going to be like the fairies, which are like the good side. You're going to be the Sandman, which is sort of a neutral player, or you're going to be the boogeyman. And so depending on your role, what's going to happen is the person who's blindfolded is going to need to guess a word that's on a card that they're not seeing. And everybody's going to take a turn giving, again, a 1-word clue going around the table, trying to get that person to guess that word. The fun part is that if you're a fairy, you're trying to get the player to guess the word. If you're a boogeyman, you're trying to get them to not guess the word or to guess incorrectly. And if you're the Sandman, you're trying to get them to guess an equal amount of good guesses and an equal amount of bad guesses. And you just keep going around for about like 2.5 minutes. And then at the end, however many cards the player guessed right, that's how many points they get. And then the fairies get that many points, and then the boogeymen get the points for the ones that got wrong.
But the rolls are all secret.
But the rolls are all secret, and every round the rolls switch.
Oh, no.
So you start to pick up on who is sort of on your team that's trying to help either help the person with the blindfold or not. But this is just one of those games that is just laugh out loud hilarious. It's frustrating because you can't say anything when somebody gives a really bad word, like a bad word to get them to guess wrong. Because if you make like any sort of verbal cue, you're going to tip the person off that, that person was either helping you or not. So a lot of fun, this game. When I Dream, my number 8.
Number 7.
Okay, my number 7 is another new mechanism that I think is great to introduce to new players, again, because there's some familiarity with press your luck games. So any game that requires you to sort of keep on like a little mental gambling or that kind of thing can be enticing and familiar to a player. And what this game is it's called Diamant, or in the US, it's called Ink and Gold. And it's a very simple premise where everybody's an archaeologist. They're all going into this cave to try to come out with the most treasure. And the way that it's represented on the board is you're laying out cards that represent how you're going further and further into the tunnel of the cave. And each card will either have a hazard like a big boulder or a snake or spiders, or it'll have a bunch of different gems on it. And so after every card's laid out, if, for example, you lay a card out and it has, 10 gems on it, then everybody's going to split those gems evenly. But then everyone simultaneously gets a choice as to whether or not they're going to continue to go deeper into the cave to get more treasure or run back to the base camp. Mm-hmm. And you do that simultaneously. You do it with cards at the exact same time. Whoever ends up running back will actually get any treasures that have been left behind by the other players. And anybody that continues will just keep on pressing their luck. The way that the game ends is if two of the same exact hazard come out as these cards are being flipped, then anybody who's still left in the cave loses everything. So you just play 5 rounds of the game. It's super simple. There's like hardly any rules to remember. It's just one of those games that gives you an opportunity to like really laugh at your friends for trying to press their luck too far and then completely failing, but still not making people feel bad because everybody's in it together. So one of my favorite press your luck games, that's Diamant or Ink and Gold.
Yeah, I think I remember you adding this to your underrated games.
This was on one of my previous lists. Yes, I think it was maybe one of our decade games.
Yeah, probably.
My favorite games of the decade. Yeah, this would have been one of them probably.
Yeah, I guess you're a huge fan of that one.
Love this game. Yeah, I taught this to lots and lots of players.
So if we ever do a top 100, I expect to see this one in the list.
Oh yeah,
since you've mentioned
easily,
it so much.
It might make my top 50 actually. Yeah, I really like this game. I like this game a lot.
Well, so for me, my number 7 pick, again, new game mechanisms. This one is all about engine building and has a little bit of deck building to it, but it's not really a deck builder, but it's called Century Golem Edition. So if you've played Century or Century Golem Edition, they're the same type of game where you start out with I think 2 cards, and then you play those to gain more cards, which give you gems, and then there's like 4 types of gems, and they're different tier levels. And so these new cards that you have in your hand, you can play them to turn in and exchange colors for other colors. Mm-hmm. And then you're trying to claim the different like goal cards that have certain requirement of gems. And if you collect enough cards, then the game ends, and then you count up all the points among everyone's earned cards throughout the game. Mm-hmm. So I included this because, first of all, it adds some new game mechanisms like this sort of engine building style. It adds sort of card management, a little bit of deck building, whereas you're learning how to like gain new cards and add them. And I think the theme is a little stronger than regular Century, and it's a little more colorful. I think the components are better. So I feel like if you're teaching this to non-gamers, this is a much more attractive game because of the artwork.
I totally agree. Yep.
And once again, it doesn't play for very long. It doesn't take too long to play through it. And I think after a round or maybe 2 rounds, like everyone understands how to play at that point. And
I completely agree with you with this game choice too, because it also has that concept of you're doing like one thing on your turn. You know, you're either picking a card up or you're putting one down or you're, buying another card. That's it. Right. So it's real easy.
Very simple choices here. So the turns typically go really fast, especially as people get into it and see and plan ahead as to what they're going to do. So, if you haven't, I think this is going to be a great one to add to your Gateway Games list.
Yeah, I love this game. Good pick. Very good pick. That it made it just off my top 10. Oh. Just off my top 10.
We'll see if it gets mentioned as an honorary mention later.
Yeah, that's right.
Number 6. All right, so for my number 6, I've got another game mechanism to teach new players. This one is all about, abstract games and building out patterns. It's not quite polyomino, but it is pattern building, and it's an abstract game. So this is called Tiny Towns. Came out in, I think, 2019. Very colorful and a lot of replayability because every time you play, there's different cards for each type of building that you can have in the game, and everyone has player variable powers and ways to get their special castle tower out on their board. And it plays very quickly, and it's very easy to teach because, again, you're just choosing a color resource to put on your board anywhere you want, and as soon as you can complete a building's arrangement, then you get to place that building. So it's very intuitive. I feel like once you hear the rules or try it one round, then you get it. There's always those cards sitting in front of you that in the middle of the table that show you the patterns that you can make with the various colored resource cubes. So everything's very plainly stated. You don't even need a player aid. Like, it's very straightforward.
It's easy game.
And you just pass the first turn player marker, and that's kind of how it goes. It's a lot of fun. It was extremely popular when it came out. And I would rank this as a really great gateway game because it introduces sort of everyone's unique player board. You're building out things. It's an abstract type of thing, and a lot of variability to it. So this is, I think, a pretty good gateway game if you want to check it out. And if you're curious and have a copy or looking to get a copy, head over on my YouTube channel. I've got a video where I do a full tutorial of Tiny Towns with all the varying extra rules that you can add into the game, to make it
a little bit more
meaty, strategic.
Yeah. This I love this game too. And one thing I would suggest too is for new players, there's this alternate rule about you can save a couple cubes off to the side or something to make it a little bit looser for new players. That works really well when I've introduced this to people. So
there's a lot of great accessibility rules that you can put into this to make it as easy to play for new players or as challenging for hardcore gamers.
Yeah. My wife's, this is one of her favorite games. So good pick.
So what's your number 7? No, number 6.
Yes, my number 6 is actually a game that has 6 in the name. This is a card game, and this is called Six Nimmt. Which is the German word. I think it actually is take 6 in the U.S.
I think it's pronounced Nimmt.
Nimmt. I like how you said that, and you have to do that with your head as well, real quick. You're just doing your impression of the chameleon that I talked about earlier. Yeah. So Six Nimmt is just a deck of cards.
I'm just kidding. I don't know if that's how it's pronounced.
I knew you weren't serious.
But he immediately started saying it, so I had to clarify. I have no idea if that's right.
Have you played this game?
No.
Oh, you haven't even played this game. That's hilarious. So
I'm just trying to throw you off.
Yeah, it worked. So Six Nimmt is a game that has exactly 104 cards, and they're numbered from 1 to 104. Cool. But the fun of the game is you're basically making 4 rows of cards that are on the table, and then you're basically you're giving 10 cards to everybody else that's at the table. And on your turn, you have to play one of your cards to one of those 4 rows in ascending order. The issue is, though, as you're playing the game, as soon as one of those rows has 5 cards in it, if anyone plays a card and it has to go in that row to make 6 cards, they have to take all the cards in front of that. So they have to take five of those cards, and then their card becomes the new card. And the reason that that's bad is that every one of the cards has like these little cows on them, or bulls. And the number of bulls that you collect at the end of the game are bad. So you want to collect the least amount possible. So you basically just play your hand out. Everybody plays these cards simultaneously. They all get sorted in ascending order to these rows. And it's just a lot of fun, a lot of tension, hoping that you're playing smart so that somebody else plays a card before you or after you so that you don't have to take all those cards. And this has been a real big hit for people because it's just such a simple game to play. You're just revealing a card, and that's it. And it plays up to 10 players. So 6 Nimmt is one of the best gateway games I've introduced to new people, and that's why it's my number 6.
Yeah, I agree with that pick. Just I think the games that have just a card, deck of cards with simple rule sets. I mean those usually go over very well because people are used to holding cards for poker or goldfish.
Yeah, there's nothing like, and they're numbered, so it's just numbers and colors. It's pretty easy.
Or Uno or something.
Yeah, and it's amazing the tension you can get out of just a simple deck of cards. So
nice.
Cool.
Number 5.
All right, for my number 5, I picked a game that has no words at all. It's just all about pictures, and this game is called Dixit. This is an award-winning game. It came out several years ago, and it's just another very simple game, but it allows players who like to give clues a really interesting way of doing that. And the way that this game works is everybody has a hand of cards, and the cards have this really like abstract type fanciful artwork on them. And the person whose turn it is, they choose one of those cards, and then they just give a clue. And it's whatever they want. So there's no rules with what type of clues you give. You can say a whole sentence. You can say the title of a movie, whatever it is. And then everybody else has to look at their hand of cards and choose one that they think best matches that clue. All these cards are placed face down on the table so nobody sees anybody else's cards. They're shuffled together, and then they're laid out in front. And then everybody has to vote on which card was the persons who gave the clue. And the way that the game plays as far as point scoring is you want somebody to guess your card, but not everybody. So if you give a really, really obvious clue that everybody guesses your card, you don't get any points for it. But if you can get just at least one person to guess it, but not anybody else, or a few people to guess it, but not all of them, then you end up getting points. So it's a very simple way of playing this really unique game that has, for me at least, really brought a lot of people into the hobby, realizing that games can be a lot more and a lot more fun and even strategic than just the simple kind of word games or Scrabble type games that they played that have these types of clues.
For what it is, it's also very creative. It kind of, you have to tap into that creative side and be able to explain something, and that's also unique for
it is, and it's creative in a way where you're not telling somebody they have to go up, like get up in front of everybody and do charades or anything like that. So this works well with people who are more introverted too. So yeah, I love this game, Dixit. One of my favorites, and that's why it made my number 5.
Cool. My number 5 introduces another game mechanism, and this is all about bluffing. And I feel like you can't do any better than Sheriff of Nottingham.
Yeah, it's a great game.
And when you play that, I mean, you can add the expansions or not, but of course, if you're doing just new players, you can stick with the base game. And if you haven't played it, basically you've got a number of cards that you draw, and you have, I think, up to 5, and then you can place up to 5 into your personal bag, and then everyone's taking turns being the sheriff. So the sheriff doesn't do this. And then it passes around until everyone's been the sheriff, I believe, once, maybe twice.
Yeah, once or twice.
Yeah. So the sheriff has to go through each player's bag and hold it and say, what is in this bag? Because he's looking for contraband as people sneak stuff through to Nottingham. And the player has to essentially lie or, just tell the truth because the contraband is worth a lot of points. But the not contraband, like apples and cheese and things like that, chickens,
yep.
They're not worth as much points. And so you have to tell them exactly how many cards are in there of what. And you can only tell him one thing. So you can't say it's a mix of this and that. That's still illegal. You can only bring in one type of good. But if he doesn't open your bag, you get to keep everything that you brought in, no matter what you said.
Yep.
But if he opens your bag, then if you're lying, then he gets the money and you lose.
Yeah, you basically get fined.
Yeah, you get a fine.
Yeah.
But one of the fun things of this is those bags have a button clip on them.
Yes.
And the rule is, as long as that button doesn't pop open, then he can do whatever he
hasn't checked
wants.
the bag.
Yeah, he hasn't checked the bag. So that's like the turning point of whether or not he's opening your bag or not. But it's a lot of fun because people really get into the theme of this and really get into, especially being the sheriff. I always enjoy it because it's like.
Just mess with your friends.
Because other people, the other thing is other people can try to persuade
to bribe the sheriff,
to open or not open certain people's bags. And it's like, I think that they've got contraband. I'll give you 2 coins if you open his, or I'll give you 3 coins if you don't open mine. That kind of thing. Yeah. So there's a lot of negotiation and bluffing involved in this, and it plays very quickly, and it's so easy to play. And,
it really is a good game.
It's so fun. And it's not aged a day. So it's definitely one to keep in your collection, and definitely pick up a copy if you can. And I do recommend the expansion if you get a chance to do that. I can't think of what it's called right now.
I think it's the Merry Men.
The Merry Men.
Yeah, because you can add more. You get to add more players with that too, right?
And more ways to score points, which is also cool. Yeah. So I think that's a great gateway game, and I recommend that for teaching bluffing.
Good pick. Very good pick. Yeah, I love this one too.
Number 4. So my number 4 pick is another great game that can be played by anybody and pretty much any age. And I've played this with my daughters as well, and they love it. It's called Camel Up. And this involves camels going on a crazy race one time around the track, which circles a pyramid. And that pyramid is where the dice go. And the dice all represent the color of the various camels. And through this game, the main mechanisms are your betting, and it's also a race. And so there's 2 aspects of this that are often quite unique and surprising to a lot of new gamers. That first of all, that you can just race, and second of all, that you can bet and win that way. So every leg of the game is basically every 5 dice that come out. You can do certain actions and do various bets for that leg of who's going to be in the front in the lead. Each die has up to 1, 2, or 3, but they're 6-sided dice, and whatever comes out, that color goes that many spaces. But the clever thing is the camels are shaped in a way where they stack on top of each other, hence camel up. And if the camels underneath, if the one on the bottom is moving, then everyone on top of it also moves with him. So there is some strategy to this to figure out which one is more likely to be ahead at the end of each leg. And of course, there's always betting on the ultimate first place and the ultimate last place for additional money, and everything's done with these little plastic coins. And it's plays in like 30 minutes, and people really get into it because it's got pop-up stuff. The new edition has like pop-up.
Yeah, definitely.
Stuff.
If you're gonna get one, get the new edition.
It's very, very colorful and just engaging. And it's one of those games that also has a really good table presence. When you're walking by, you're like, oh man, that looks really interesting. What's going on there? And so it does kind of speak for itself as to what's going on, and then it's just like, oh wow, how do I bet on this? And it just brings people around the table.
Yeah. And there's in this game too, it has those really high moments too, where everybody is like standing up waiting to see what happens.
Very tense. It's like, oh, don't let the black one come out, don't let the purple one come out, that kind of thing. It's like, I have my money on the green.
Yeah, really fun. This is one of my top racing games.
Excellent.
So I love this game too.
It's a great racing game. It's a great betting game.
I love it. Good pick.
Thanks.
So for my number 4, it's also it's a bidding game.
A bidding game.
So it's not a betting game, but it's a bidding game.
Close.
And yeah, it uses the same first letter. So it's got to be similar. And if you've listened to some of the previous podcasts or videos that we've done, you'll know that Reiner Knizia is one of my favorite game designers.
We know that.
And actually, although I was going to say, I was going with bidding, and I just instantly thought of Reiner Knizia. This is actually not. This is Stefan Dora. I just remember that. So this is a game called For Sale.
Mm-hmm.
And For Sale is a game where everybody is bidding on properties. So
kind of like Monopoly.
Kind of like Monopoly, but actually fun.
And this is just cards, right?
Just cards. It's cards and money, really. But yeah, another deck of cards. And what you're doing is you have...
Going for the simple.
Very simple, yeah. Because
non-threatening.
It's more just like if you tell me, if you don't tell me who's going to be there, this is what I'm bringing because I know it'll be a hit with anybody,
Except for me, I hate this.
Except for you don't like this game?
I've never played it.
It's great. Oh. All right, see, now I get my gamer card back this time.
I've never played any of the games he suggests.
Oh, yeah? Have you not played any of these?
No, I
played some of them. Okay. They're so like good, it's just, you have to work your way up to the upper echelon.
Yeah. Okay.
So with this game, you have, you're putting out cards that represent different houses from 1 to 30. And the houses with lower numbers are like, a cardboard box or an outhouse, whereas the ones with higher numbers are like mansions and, international space stations and things like that.
A yacht.
A yacht. Actually, there's probably a boat home on one of these. And then house. You have a certain amount of money that everybody starts the game out with. And you're just doing traditional bidding. I bid 1,000 on this, and then somebody has to up the bid to 2,000. And it just keeps going until somebody passes. And then as soon as you pass, you basically take the lowest valued home, and then it just keeps repeating itself. But this has two different phases. So the second phase of the game, after everybody has acquired their properties, is you then lay out cards that represent different checks that you're going to get for selling your houses. And they go from like $0 to $15,000. So that part of the game has this simultaneous element where the cards come out, everybody will reveal one card at the same time, and then whoever's property is the most valuable, meaning the highest number on the card, they get the highest check. And you just do that 2 quick rounds. Whoever has the most money at the end of the game wins. So a real easy game to teach, really simple mechanisms, and it teaches some fun auction bidding type mechanics. And that's why For Sale is my number 4.
Sweet. Number 3.
Okay, so my number 3 is a really popular game that I think probably a lot of you have already heard of if you're not already into the board game hobby, and that is Codenames. Codenames is a fantastic game. I think one of the best party games to come out in the last 10 years. And this game is also one you can buy at Target. There are tons of different implementations of it. You can get a Disney version, a Simpsons version, a Marvel version, Harry Potter version. So it's it goes on and on. And there's also a pictures version versus a word version. But what it is it's a team-based game where you're also again giving clues, and you're laying these cards out in a grid, and each card will have either a picture or a word on the card. And then 2 people are going to be the quote-unquote spy masters, which really are just the clue givers for that round. So if it's me, I'll give clues to my team, and then Jared will give clues to his team, trying to guess the right words on the board. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to uncover all of our secret words before the other team. But the one of the really interesting things about the game is there's one card on the board that if your team guesses it, you instantly lose the game. So you have to give clues that are very clever clues,
but a little specific and not too generalized.
Yes,
they don't. You don't want them to take that accidentally.
That's right. So you have to be careful not to give a clue that would make them pick that one card. So, for example, let's say that you have several different cards on the board, and you're playing the pictures version, and they have like a tree and leaves and grass or something. So you might say lawn care. 3. So what you're trying to say is, okay, I have your clue is lawn care, and there's 3 cards that meet that clue that are out on the board, and then your team has to try to one by one guess those. So that's really the gist of the game. It's really tense because especially if you get behind, you're trying to give clues that help them guess a lot of the different cards at once to catch up.
And you're allowed to, put any number in there, but the word that you give is that, that's the hard part, is you're trying to link as many of these random words with one word clues. And then if you can link them, then you can add, let's say 4 of these cards can be linked to this word. So, word 4.
And it's so tense as the clue giver, you cannot give any hint at all.
No gestures.
As your team is trying to figure out which words they are. You can't say anything, and it's hilarious when you give a clue and your team just completely takes that in a different direction and picks the wrong cards or picks the other team's cards. So this one is just a fantastic game. I think any of the versions are good, but definitely either the traditional Codenames or Codenames Pictures are what made it my number 3.
I also enjoy Codenames Duet, which is great for a 2-player game.
That's one that my wife and I like to play. It's cooperative. It has a little bit more rules overhead, but not much. Not much.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say it's great for like a one-on-one to new non-gamer. But regular Codenames played with a group is perfect, I think. So that's a good pick.
Absolutely.
So my number 3 pick is a game. It covers a game mechanism that he's already discussed, and that's a push your luck type of game. This is a relatively new game. Came out, I think, 2019, called The Quacks of Quedlinburg. And so this is a couple things. This is push your luck, and it's bag building. So I tried to smush all these different new game mechanisms as much as I could in the top 10.
You're right. You're right about that.
So one of the ways you're drawing stuff is you at the end of the round you earn a certain number of production points, and then you're able to buy up to 2 different ingredient tokens, and they're all the same shape because the main part is when you reach in your bag and you're trying to pull out ingredient tokens without looking. Unfortunately, there's a number of these cherry bomb tokens that also have that same shape, so you can't really know by feel. And if you get enough cherry bombs so that their values shown are 7 or more, or more than 7, then you've busted, right? And if you bust, then you don't get both the victory points and the production points. You have to pick one. And you also are disqualified from other bonuses. And so you're earning points this way. The game plays over like 7 or 8 rounds, but it plays very quickly, and it also slowly introduces new ingredients within the first 3 rounds. So you're not fully overwhelmed with what your possibilities are. You just have like 4 or so to choose from. Then you have 5, and then another round you have 6, and you're like, okay, I see what's going on. I could see why I want that one. And now that I'm generating more production points, I might invest in one of these, because if I get to pull it, then it's going to make me, do this and that. And they all have varying abilities based on the different sides of the book tiles that you use.
It's like 4 different versions.
There's like quite a few of various sides to all the different colors. And if you're like me, you look on BGG for all the fan-made ones and print those out as well.
I've not done that before.
I have done that.
Okay,
I printed it out, glued it on some cardboard, and then you got infinite playability for that kind of thing. So, but it's also very non-threatening. But everyone has their own board, and so it introduces that, and the fun part of, are you going to keep drawing tokens, or are you so close to busting over that the cherry bomb value? Are you going to just stop because you're running out of tokens? Like, how many ingredients did I really put in this bag? That kind of thing. So it's a lot of fun. Everybody always has a good time. And I think it works really well to introduce those kinds of concepts, and it's just a solid game. Quacks of Quedlinburg.
Good pick. That's one of my favorite pressure luck games. Yep, I love it.
Number 2. So for my number 2 pick, I wanted to pick a game that would introduce polyominoes in the most palatable way, because polyomino games have really come a long way with games like Isle of Cats, and then Feast for Odin if you want to go as heavy as you can, and even lighter stuff, Patchwork and Cottage Garden. But for my pick, I'm going with Arile, which is a relatively new one, and the way it plays, up to 4 people, you have your own personal board that's vertical that really looks like a Tetris board.
Yeah.
Because
Very
all
much
the
so.
pieces are Tetris pieces, save for like one that's different. It's like a little three square, 90-degree corner. But every other piece is something you saw in Tetris. And the way it works is there's a center piece that rotates clockwise, and it has certain cards on them, and the orientation is determined. And so on your turn, you can choose any of these polyominoes pictured on the card, take the card, and then you take that polyomino cardboard token and put it on your board as if it were sliding down from the top of your board.
Just like Tetris.
Just like Tetris. And of course, if you create full lines, then you're able to bump up your limit. There's like a banner that goes on the top. So when you create a full line, your banner goes up as if it were Tetris and you cleared out the bottom.
Yeah.
But instead of clearing stuff, because that would make it very difficult, they just raise it up from the top. And also, once you've created groups of
like colored shapes
that, I think it's like at least 2 together, then you place a little guy on him, and then he can come off the board as long as you don't bust at the end of the round. And to bust, that means that you are forced to place a polyomino that either reaches or exceeds that banner. Then you lose all the guys that you placed on the banner that you earned this round. So those are it's really fun, and it takes the concepts that people are very familiar with and puts it onto a table. But one of the cool things too is that center piece, as it rotates, your action is either take. I think you have 2 actions. You can either take polyominoes as 1 and 2, or you can use those actions to rotate it clockwise,
that's right.
which also is how you would be able to take that piece in a different orientation.
Like rotate it like you would in Tetris.
Like in Tetris, but you can't take the card and then rotate it however you want. You have to orient it in your board the same way that you took it. And so because of that, like everyone's facing this center dial from a different perspective. So it's plays through 3 rounds, and then you just play until the cards are all out, and then you move on to the next round. And it's a lot of fun. Points are always, it's just great.
Yeah, this is one. If I get to see this one and say I'm going to pick this one up because I really enjoyed playing this one.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, and as long as you say, hey, this is just like Tetris, and let me show you how that works and why it's different in a multiplayer way, people are like, yeah, I'm down for that. That looks cool.
Yeah, good pick. I like that game a lot. Okay, so for my number 2, I picked a dice game. Dice are super familiar to everybody. This game, all it
Monopoly.
has. No, it's not. It's not Monopoly, but it does have money cards. But it's not paper money. It's money cards. That's pretty much it. Money cards and dice. And the name of the game is called Las Vegas. And this is a game where you have different tiles that you're putting on the board that represent basically like a casino. And they're numbered from 1 to 6, just like a dice. And then everybody has 8 of their own colored dice. And the way the game plays is on your turn, you roll all your dice, and then you choose which of those dice to place on the number 1 through number 6 spots. So, but you have to place all of that number you choose of the dice you have on that spot. So if I rolled and I had 3 threes and I wanted to put my dice on 3, then I have to take all 3 of those dice and place them there. And everybody does that, and you just keep going around in clockwise order until everybody's out of dice. And then whoever has the most dice on any one of those 6 spaces gets to actually win a stack of money that's placed next to those spaces. And then you play 3 rounds. Whoever has the most money wins the game. The thing about this is you can teach this game in a minute. It's so simple.
I think you already did. And
I pretty much did. That was pretty much the game. But there's some great choices that give, there's not a ton of choices because you're limited to just what you have in front of you with dice. But there's some strategic choices about where you place your dice because you're kind of teaching area control, in a way that's, it's not hidden. It's right out in the open to everybody. If I have the most dice, I get the thing. But there's one really cool twist on this game that I think makes it great. And that is at any point at the end of the round, if there are the exact same number of dice on any of those tiles, those dice cancel out.
Mm-hmm.
So you and another player could have 4 dice on one space, and then another person could have 1 dice. And at the end of the round, if you both have 4 and 4, they all cancel, and the person who has the 1 dice takes the money. So that just gives that extra little layer of strategy to this game that otherwise is just super simple. And I have never had this game go bad for anybody. So Las Vegas, a classic, and still my number 2 gateway game to introduce new players.
Honorable mentions.
Okay, so before we get to our number 1, we're going to give you a couple of our honorable mentions that just fell off the list. So, Jared, you want to start with yours first?
Sure. So I had a few honorable mentions, but I think I'll just limit it to talking about 2. The first one is Quest for El Dorado. That one's a great deck building game with little small cards, very not intimidating at all. But you've got this map and you've got a little Meeple guy, and so you're teaching the concept of a Meeple. You're teaching deck building and like sort of area control, because you kind of have to block out certain sometimes. But you're just racing, so it's also a racing game. It's like a lot of different things in a small, easy to comprehend game. I mean, it's got a standard box size and whatnot because of all the huge tiles needed for the map, but it's very easy to play, and I think it introduces a lot of core concepts really well to new players.
Yeah, I love this game, man. Rainer Knizia, so I'm going to like it. Yeah,
of course. What about you? You want to give this one?
Yeah, so one I like is called New York Slice. And this game's great because the pieces look like a medium-sized pizza. You have like I think 8 or 9 slices are these cardboard tiles that look like pieces of pizza with different toppings on them, and it's really just one of those
I cut you choose
mechanisms where you've got the whole pizza, you split it among the number of people that you have. And you're doing it in a way knowing that you're going to be the last person to pick from the slices that you've put in groups. And really just set collection game. You're trying to collect, as many 1s or 9s or 8s as you...
Pepperonis are points and anchovies
Pepperonis are points, anchovies are negative points.
Yeah.
It's easy to teach because of the theme. Looks great on the table, really pulls people in because even the box looks like a pizza box, and the score tracker looks like a menu. It's a good game.
If you weren't really paying attention, you just walked by, you might assume people are just sitting around eating pizza.
Yeah, it looks like realistic pizza. It's not cartooning or anything like that.
It's very realistic as far as the art. So.
Yeah, so this one draws people in. So New York Slice is a great game.
Yeah, that's a great pick.
What was your other one?
I think for my other one would be probably another deck building game, which is more of a pure deck building game called Subatomic, an atom building game.
I've never played this.
So this is from the Genius Games line of science-based games. They also did Cytosis, which is another great worker placement game. But Subatomic, basically you've got your small player board where you can create and build out an atom with varying amounts of protons and neutrons with 1 or 2 electrons. And to do those, you have to play cards, and the cards might say, like, you get an electron, so you put a little token on the electron, or you might play a neutron, you place a little token, or you move the token upwards rather to keep track of how many neutrons and protons that you have. And as you play these, you can also, instead of playing the card for what they are, just put them face down and collect energy, because you also have to spend energy to do a lot of different other actions, including buying cards requires energy a lot of times, as well as specific cards. So like you use quarks as your starting deck of cards, both red and blue quarks. And so certain cards, the top row of available cards, you have to have a combination of those quarks to take them, which have the larger subatomic particles. And then you can play multiple subatomic particles to get the bigger molecules that have even more in it. And so as you slowly build this deck up, you get more and more powerful hands. And
it's educational.
It's very educational. You're totally learning a lot of cool stuff. There's some bonus tokens you can earn every time you complete an element. And so you collect these elements, which are the points, and then you have to remove the atom that you just built, because the atoms that you're building up, are going to become hopefully one of those 3 available elements that are drawn, and then another one comes out and replaces that. So it's very educational. It's a lot of fun. It's a deck builder in a very pure sense, and it doesn't take very long. So I really recommend you take a look at that. But I felt like with all the other card sort of deck building stuff I had going on in this list, I didn't really quite make it.
Yeah, I'll have to try this game sometime. Yeah. So my other one is called a game called Ya Blew It. And this was on sale at Target as well. It actually, you can't miss it because it comes in a container that looks like a big stick of dynamite. And it's a push your luck game. The cool thing with this game is, again, it looks really neat because the dice itself look like sticks of dynamite, but they're really 8-sided dice.
Yeah.
And so what you're doing is you're just trying to collect like gems, but not get the one gems that aren't, are going to give you negative points. And you do that by, rolling dice and then pressing your luck to see if you can, get the most gems. So pretty easy to teach, and it has a cool, theme, like a prospector type theme. So this is another one that I'd recommend called Ya Blew It.
Can I mention one more?
Yeah.
So one other that I really almost included, and was on my list until I sort of kind of moved things around a bit, but it's Azul. And I think this is a really popular game, both for strategy, gamers, and it's great to introduce to people. The reason I took it off, I felt like it was a little bit too abstract, a little bit harder to kind of explain why you want to collect these things,
right?
And like how building up the rows.
There's no theme.
Yeah, there's really no theme to it, so it's harder to get people into it. Although, I mean, it's probably a great game to introduce like after other things.
Yeah, this is like the kind of game that, like, if I was having a couples night, I would definitely bring this one out, because I have taught this and have had people like ordered off Amazon as soon as they're done. So it's a great pick. It's tougher, especially if you only have 4 players too. Sometimes you have a bigger crowd to, so it's harder to get to the table.
I just felt like it was just slightly too complex to make my list for sort of the criterion that I was going for.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So on to our number ones.
Yeah, so let's do number 1. Number 1.
Okay, so my number 1 is Just One.
Just One?
Just One. So, Just One.
I just got this game, actually.
Yeah? It's so good. Just One it's again, next to Codenames, this to me is probably the best party game that I've seen. Best word game, in the past 5 years it's come out. It's so simple. Which is the beauty of this game.
There's just one rule.
There's one rule, and that is you have a card that's in front of the person who can't see it, and the card's going to have 5 different words on it, and everybody else at the table sees the card. So the person who can't see the card just says a number between 1 and 5, and let's say that corresponds to the word mountain, and then they close their eyes, and then everybody secretly writes down a 1-word clue, just one word, that describes mountain. But what happens is as soon as everybody at the table is finished writing down their word, they show it to everybody else at the table. And if anyone has written the same clue word as anybody else, those words get flipped face down. So the person who's closing their eyes isn't going to see them. So then the person opens their eyes, and they have to try to guess the word mountain based on whatever clues are still left over. The game plays so fast. It's just really capitalizes on that kind of classic game feel, but with a little bit of a modern spin on it. And this game is one that this will always be in my bag anytime I go to somebody's house to teach games or introduce them to new games. So Just One is my number 1.
Excellent. You can't beat that with number 1.
We've not had any crossovers at this point, so
no, but that's about to change.
Is it really?
Yes.
Okay, you did pick this one.
Because my number 1 has already been mentioned by my buddy Jay.
Okay, so it's not going to be your number 1. I don't think it's going to be something else. Let's see. Okay, go ahead.
So it's a card game.
Okay, it's not 6 and Empty because you don't know that one.
It's a card drafting game.
Drafting.
Because I haven't on my list yet introduced a card drafting game.
Yeah, okay.
So this is Sushi Go.
Sushi Go, yeah.
Which is his number 10.
That's right.
But it's my number 1.
Opposite end of the spectrum.
Opposite. But still made the list. And that's important because this game is fantastic. It's again, it's a deck of cards. It's set collection. It's card drafting, and all of these concepts are easy to learn and easy to play, and it's fast to get through it. So you can do multiple games if you really wanted to, and just kind of go for a tournament or something.
Yeah.
And you can pretty much bring it anywhere because it's got such a small footprint. And since it's just putting cards in front of you, like you don't really need a whole table space to do it even.
Yep.
But it's a really cool game. The artwork's nice, and it's been popular with everybody I've ever played it with, and that's all ages. And, as he mentioned, there's Sushi Go Party, which if you really knew you were going to like a convention or just a big gathering of people where maybe they're not all gamers, get that 10-player version and teach that. Because, again, even if you're teaching to 10 people, I mean, it's just like 2 rules and then you're done.
Super simple.
So it's great. I think it's just sort of the quintessential like gateway game.
Yeah. And that's a great one to cross over.
I felt like out of all my 10, this one was the most crossovery and like common pick.
Yeah, and this is sold so many copies, so
huge. I think hugely popular.
Yeah, so many gamers I know have this one in their collection.
Yeah, I'd be surprised if you watching haven't already played or at least heard of this game.
Yeah, absolutely. So, great, good.
So that's our top 10 gateway games, and I feel like since we have so many picks, and as I was going through my collection, I've got dozens more that I could add to this list.
Yeah, same here.
So let us know, if we get a lot of likes and comments on this, requesting another one, kind of a follow-up for either more top 10 gateway games or maybe the level 2 or whatever, next step gateway games. We'd be happy to do that. So let us know.
It'd be a lot of fun.
And I think we'll consider that. But I think for next time, we've got some other top 10s planned.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about. I don't want to spoil that for you. So you'll have to stick around and so to make sure that you don't miss anything on this channel, including all the podcasts that we do. Hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you can get notified when the videos come out. Yeah. And if you're listening on the podcast, this is a part of a YouTube channel, Meeple Mentor. Please head over there because you'll get to see our bright and shining faces, a video version of this podcast. And if you are on YouTube and hey, you're like, I like listening, but I don't really have that time to sit in front of my computer. But you don't like
our faces.
Or maybe he's too ugly for you.
Yes.
You can listen in your car or on your phone or wherever because we're on all the different streaming servers.
Right. The dulcet tones of our voice will put you to sleep in the car, so don't do that.
There you go.
But yeah, so and if you are listening to a podcast, we'd love to see have your ratings. Some feedback and comments in those, and share with your friends.
Yeah, and we really appreciate you guys listening and watching, and just supporting the channel in general. And if this is all that you've seen on the channel, I will also point out that the crux of the channel is doing tutorials for medium to heavyweight complexity games. So if you're looking for fully explained, in-depth rules that cover everything you need to know for those really complex games, this is the channel to stick at. I release 2 a month. And we also do recently a new series of news, which is just generally going through what's happening in the board game industry. So instead of waiting for a podcast to discuss it in ad nauseum, I do a very short, almost bulleted news report, and I cover the top Kickstarters that are out that you might want to look at, the top games being played on BGG, what's happening in the industry from a business perspective. You'll hear about a new board game content creator, because if you didn't know that we are part of a community of board game content creators. It's called the Gateway Network. So in this news series, I also shout out at least one of them to sort of point you towards some other great people working on some stuff within board gaming. Yeah. And in this little news segment, I also tend to talk just a little bit about behind the scenes stuff with the channel. So if you want to know more, head over and check those out.
Yeah. I guess with having said that, I've been Jay.
And I've been Jared.
And we will catch you next time.
See you guys.
Bye.